We have coming up on the stage two amazing ladies who are going to take the conversations forward. Let's start with introducing the special guest, Kiran Mazumdar, who is not just a biotech entrepreneur. She's a pioneer who has transformed Indian healthcare and put Indian innovation on the global map. Starting Biocon with just 10,000 rupees in a garage, she built it into Asia's leading biopharmaceutical enterprise, delivering affordable and innovative healthcare solutions in over 120 countries. In a world where access to healthcare is increasingly unequal, Kiran's vision of affordable insulin and cancer therapies is about democratizing healthcare. Biocon's biosimilars and complex biologics are saving lives worldwide, exemplifying economic resilience, a core theme of AED 2025. Biocon isn't just participating in the global market, it's leading. Through strategic alliances with Mylan and Sandoz, Biocon has expanded its global footprint, proving that Indian companies can lead on a world stage. Kiran also founded Syngene International, a leader in contract research and development, providing cutting-edge solutions to global pharmaceutical and biological giants. Kiran's journey is a blueprint for navigating complexity, building economic resilience, and driving transformative innovation. Her leadership is not just about building a company, it's about building an ecosystem that empowers lives and shapes economies. Joining her is Rama Bijapurkar, a celebrated author, strategic advisor, and independent director to India's leading corporations. An expert on the Indian consumer economy, Rama's insights are invaluable in an era of fragmented markets and evolving customer behaviors. This fireside chat is not just a conversation, it's a masterclass in leadership, innovation, and strategic foresight. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Kiran Mazumdar and Rama Bijapurkar for what promises to be an unforgettable conversation at AED 2025. A big round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. So Kiran, it is my extreme pleasure to be able to share this forum with you in this august gathering here. And I thought today we will chat a little bit in no particular order about your perspectives and experiences in building a global business of Indian origin so that we can all learn from it. It's often said that the best examples of India for India come from India, and that's really what I hope to get you to talk about. And then to talk about navigating the new global reset that may or may not happen, that's in the offing, more pragmatically than we've heard. And how are you thinking about it? I think that's it. And to brainstorm a little bit with you, I know we can't solve all problems in this forum, but to look at some practical, doable ways in which we can strengthen the Indian science and healthcare ecosystem so that we can have many more Biocons and many more Kiran Shores and many more beneficiaries of the affordable health system. So the global reset in the offing. 25% tariffs I read in the paper on imports to America. It's a big market for all Indian pharma and allied products. Of course, offshore research is probably safe. Europe also a little bit shaky, also a good market. So how are you thinking about it? And walk us through the scenarios that you're looking at.
So Rama, first and foremost, it's really a pleasure to see you after such a long time and share this forum with you.
Thank you.
So let me talk about my perspective of the global reset. I think we are clearly seeing, this decoupling across the world. We are clearly seeing this localization phenomenon of every country wanting people to come and produce in their countries. But at the same time, of course, everyone wants to beat inflation, everyone wants to reduce cost, and of course, healthcare is one area where costs are spiraling out of control. And I think India needs to change the narrative. We are not the supplier of cheap drugs. We are providing health security to the planet. That's the way I look at the role we are playing. We are not the pharmacy of cheap drugs for the world. I think if there was anything to happen to disrupt the supply chains from India, believe me, there will be a global health crisis. So I think the way I look at it is very different. Yes, I know that there's a lot of posturing right now about tariffs, and yes, pharmaceuticals have been mentioned time and time again by Trump. But at the same time, he also keeps talking about fentanyl from China. So I think we really need to negotiate this bit in a very strategic way from a position of strength. I think we also know that India recently did, exempt duty from many drugs, cancer drugs, and largely that's what we import in terms of, pharmaceutical products from the US. So if Trump is really talking about quid pro quo, I think we need to negotiate on that basis, is my view. But apart from that, I think we need to wait and see what's in store for the world in terms of these tariffs and these negotiating aspects. But I personally believe India should negotiate from a position of strength because the US needs our medicines. The US knows that from this call for local production, I don't think it can happen in 4 years. Let's be very honest. And thirdly, I think India is hugely invested in the US. I think all of us have operations in the US. So it's not like we're not investing in the US and we are not making products in the US. But I think we need to understand that there is a balance. And if you break that balance, it's going to hit inflation in a big way. So I think I'm not too concerned about the very loud rhetoric that we're hearing today about the thing. But at the same time, when you look at the global reset that's taking place, I really want to pick up on what Minister Goel said. I think India needs to be very, very cognizant of sustainable and inclusive economic development. I think economic purpose today for a country like India is going to be extremely important, and that's what will help us to really address a lot of these various global disruptions that we are seeing across the world. We need to really put our heads down and make sure that we do deliver on those SDGs because India needs it. We haven't done much. And we need to look at it, whether it is healthcare and health metrics, whether it's education metrics, whether it is the carbon footprint. It's going to be good for us to follow those SDGs in our own way. So we do need to develop an India model.
That said, a lot of the golden greats are focusing on overseas markets. It's almost like, I track consumption, and it's almost like nobody wants the masses below the top 10 or 15% of the rich household. So how do we sort of entice industry to embrace all of it?
So when I look at our own business, I personally, when I look at the way it breaks up, yes, the US and Europe account for a fairly significant part of the business, but emerging markets and India make up a very large part of our business too, right? And I think healthcare is one area where you do need to look at global opportunities. It is about making global impact. So I think we are not picking and choosing markets because they pay us better or pay us less. Very often you actually find that emerging markets pay you just as well. It's interesting to know that. But I think everybody is so fixated on the US
Is it the
market.
volume into margin equations? Is it just the margins that are
No, I
dazzling?
think even the margins are pretty
still
good,
pretty good?
in many emerging markets. But I think we are too fixated on the US model. And I think what happens is that when you do that, you tend to kind of focus your your resources and your attention on key markets which you think are important, and you actually neglect a lot of other opportunities which are even more attractive.
Yeah, I mean, once upon a time, the IT sector focused almost entirely on the US markets to the exclusion of the Indian markets, and that's still a big challenge, right?
Well, India is a growing market. If you ask any healthcare company, any pharmaceutical company in India, I think the India business is a growing business, and they do not want to ignore it or neglect it.
That's good to hear. That it is make in India and make for India as compared to make in India for everybody else. But are there some Indian companies you think in your sector, for example, and I don't mean specific companies, but are there any kinds of strategies or organization structures that will do much better in the global reset that will survive? I mean, you mentioned operations in the US, so do companies with distributed manufacturing? I mean, who does better? Who will survive much better?
So, you know, Rama, we made the biggest acquisition in the history of the Indian pharmaceutical sector.
Recently.
Right? 2 years ago. So we bought our US partners out to make sure that we had a fully integrated end-to-end model. The partnership we had was we were doing the research and manufacturing, and they were doing the front-end commercialization. And there came a point when, you know, we both decided that it was in the best interest to create one entity that was end-to-end and get the best efficiencies out of the business. And so I decided to, you know, do that, and I decided to make this big bet. And I think it's been a very transformative acquisition for us. We are global. We are operating in 120 countries. We have a global, you know, leadership team. I think it's been very exciting. And we understand the global businesses so much better. Yes, we do have both manufacturing and research distributed, of course, largely out of India, but also, you know, distributed in a small way out of it. Commercial is, of course, much more global than in India, and that is what is interesting.
So distributed manufacturing, people, services, partnerships, that's really what will sustain. What about offshoring? I mean, the high-end research that you do, is offshoring the right word, or is that the wrong word? Is
so
it
we do
word?
offer research services to global clients, and I think that's a great business, just like the IT software services business. But I think we've also been investing in very interesting, innovative research companies in other parts of the world, just like you heard the minister talk about it. I think that's a very smart model. If you're in a certain kind of business, trying to do everything in India may not pay you the best payback. I think you do need to look at each business objectively and look at how you can value add and how you can be faster in terms of augmenting innovation.
So will the outsourced research business, which you've actually created the whole model with Syngene and everything, will that also require for survival and thriving to actually have more units everywhere else, exactly like manufacturing and services?
No, I think what research services needs is the use of technology, okay? And I really believe that you just heard this morning, breaking news from NVIDIA, that they have a generative AI model to design new molecules, to do drug discovery. I think that is what is going to shape the industry. I think the bioscience and biotech industry has been late adopters of new technologies. But today, the speed at which we are all trying to catch up is quite mind-boggling.
So is that good news for us, that with a smaller pool of people, we can actually do so much more?
It's very good news for us because we do have an existing talent pool.
Yeah.
Okay, it's for us to leverage it. So I think companies that are, you know, playing a wait and watch game will miss out big time. You've just got to jump in there and take charge and make sure that you're really investing in new technologies. And I can tell you it works to your advantage. Because I know we've been investing in new technologies, we've been investing in robotics, we've been investing in analytics, we've been investing in a lot of paperless kind of approaches to running our businesses. And I think efficiency is a big, big benefit of doing that. And then, of course, when you use new technologies, like what is being done today, I think you will see much more accelerated innovation. I think we are already seeing that what we call as the clone to clinic timeline is shrinking rapidly. It used to take almost 18 months in the past. It's now coming down to less than 3 months. That's the speed at which new technologies are doing research. So you don't have an option.
So that's a good segue actually to talk to you about your risk appetite and how you think about opportunities. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows the story and it's in the book as well, which I'm going to get you to sign. But you started the Biocon business, the Syngene business, the biologics business, you know, when India was not as hot or as cool as it is now, as we've heard from the minister and so on. And at that time, even I think the IT model around the time you started was also not so prevalent for you to say, okay, they did it, I can try and do something, as they were struggling, right? And I remember a story in an Arvind Mills case study where when they went and showed denim to their denim products around the world, people said, oh, we don't think this can be made in India. But two questions here. One is that you took the bets at a time when there wasn't enough, well, if you asked a management school spreadsheet, and I'm a part-time academic, we would look at it and say, no, I don't think so. You have to wait. You have to build more sort of confidence and evidence. But you actually took the path that was harder. So tell us a little bit about how you think about risk and how you think about opportunity, and you know, and obviously, is it also QS, QT, quarter se quarter tak? You are a listed company.
No, for me, I think I've always used the phrase foolish courage when I started my company. I had a huge risk appetite, so I think I just went for it. But I think more than anything else, when I look at a new opportunity, I look at it as a way to start something without being a follower. I look at it as a leadership opportunity. And that's what gets me to start new businesses. Even today, you don't have serious investment in biologics. Okay, I think apart from us, there is no serious investment in biologics because it is a very risky business. It is a business where each molecule you develop costs you between $100 to $150 million a piece. I think our generic industry is used to sub $5 million a molecule. And so that requires a very different mindset. And I think Indian industry is beginning to get to understand what it means and what it takes, because even after spending $100 million, you may not quite get the approval at the end. So I think we as a company have really realized that you have to have very high science in what you do. And we've always followed the science. In fact, when we made our bets in biosimilars, I can tell you that there were no guidelines available to us because we were ahead of the guidelines in most parts of the world. But we said, look, we've got to follow high science, and I'm sure guidelines will follow high science, and it did align in the end. In fact, I'm very proud of the, some of the achievements in the sense that we were the first company globally to be approved by US FDA for biosimilar trastuzumab, a breast cancer drug. Whilst even some of our big competitors like Pfizer and Amgen were given what they call as a CRL because they felt their dossiers were not good enough. Their science was not good enough. They had to go back to the drawing board and come back a year later. So we were, 1 or 2 years ahead of our strongest competition in the US. Similarly, there was another biosimilar, pegfilgrastim. We were also the first company to get an interchangeable label for an insulin glargine. Okay? Again, I can tell you, consultants told us you will never get approval because you're using your proprietary platform technology. We have a proprietary technology to make insulin. And they said, unless you follow the Lilly process, unless you follow the Novo process, you're not going to get approval. And that was proven wrong because it's about the science. It's about how you present your science. So I've realized that, we are leading the way in many, many ways.
But before you made all these successes, and you will succeed from more success, what did you need to believe in the beginning? Because like you say, I mean, the generics, branded generics, generic industry, in licensing, it's still a lot cheaper.
You have to believe in your science. You have to believe in your capabilities. You have to believe in your economic purpose. My economic purpose was very strong. It was rooted in affordable access. And I knew that that was going to win us the day. Well, it started with India because my best friend died of breast cancer and she couldn't afford the drug I finally made. And I said, this is crazy. I've got to disrupt. I've got to make sure that people across the world who have breast cancer can afford this drug. That's what led me to develop it. And today, everybody in the world who needs this drug has access to it, can afford it. In fact, we have the largest market share even in the US for this drug.
Amazing. And this kind of, there's a lot that's written now in management literature. I'm conscious I'm talking to an entrepreneur, but who makes management literature happen. So
entrepreneurs don't follow management
rules.
That's what
we're just the drama critics of. In fact, the drama critics in the wrong way of what entrepreneurs do. But there's a lot of literature now that talks about purpose-driven. Of course, in many cases, purpose is just a line in the annual report. But they say that purpose really makes sense when it embeds into your strategy. So you've given up, obviously, certain opportunities that could have been lucrative because it didn't really fit. You talk a lot about emerging markets and you talk a lot about your purpose being affordable healthcare. So that does mean sacrifice?
There is no sacrifice. I think every entrepreneur chooses what they want to do, okay? And you then put everything behind it. For me, as I said, my economic purpose was to pursue a certain business which nobody else was looking at, but I felt it was very important, to pursue an economic purpose. I think that economic purpose word I keep using over and over again.
So
and I use it because
purpose.
No, economic purpose. What is your economic purpose? If that economic purpose is rooted in something which is very powerful, you will do what it takes to get there. And I think the other thing that I've also managed to do is to really get shared purpose from all the scientists and engineers who work at my companies. I think if you can get everyone to be very focused on that mission of ensuring that you deliver world-class science that delivers affordable access to whatever you're doing, I think that's a very powerful mission for people to buy into. And so I think as an entrepreneur, if you ask me what are my strengths is I've been able to look at opportunities ahead of time. My strength has been to find the right people to help me, achieve those opportunities or seize those opportunities and address them. And I think my strength has been to really be able to share my vision with the people who have joined me.
And timelines for returns? Do you have longer timelines?
Of course, you have to have timelines for return, but
which are longer than...
Yeah, but I think the problem in our business is that we are ruled by regulations. So even if I'm in a hurry, even if I want to do things faster, very often the stumbling blocks and the deterrents are the regulations, the regulators. I think they should adopt new technologies. They should not be taking so long to review files. They should not be taking so long to understand the scientific data you're producing to them. And I think we will see a huge shrinkage of timelines from lab to market when the regulators start adopting new technologies. Everyone talks about AI and data analytics and all the things that we're doing. But I can tell you it's very disappointing to see that the regulators don't use those.
The world over.
Yeah, the world over.
Right. And so now with the Made in India label, of course, there's one thing when Kiran and Biocon go, but on an average, do you think it's easier? There's far more credibility today than there was before. Are partnerships much more easier to do?
I think India does enjoy a big, enjoys a good reputation and is recognized for being able to develop pharmaceutical molecules of high quality. So I think from that point of view, the credibility is there. But what I think India needs to do is to go from generics to innovative molecules. That's really what I want to do, and that's what we are also investing in. Because I really think we need to create that ecosystem like China has done. Today, China's DeepSeek movement is not just in AI. China's DeepSeek movement is also in drug innovation. You have no idea how many new drugs have come out of the Chinese stables, right? They have actually been fast followers to the Pfizers and Merck's and everyone else, because they've been able to really leverage their scientific skills to develop the next better molecule. So it's called fast follower molecules. Why can't India do it? Of course we can.
So is it the battle for dreams?
No,
Or is it
I
the
think
tyranny of the stock market?
it's just about the fact that India doesn't have the right ecosystem to do that.
Right.
We don't have venture funding. We don't have regulatory speed, and we lack the belief that we can do it. And to come back to your question, I think unless we do that, believe me, we will not be able to sustain this sector the way we are doing today. Tomorrow you're going to see many countries even beat India's performance, even in generic drugs, because they're using technologies that are so cheap, fast, and able to get these products out into the markets in a very cost-effective way. So I think you have to go to innovation. You have to start developing new molecules, fast followers, and we can do it. I mean, there are many, many areas where I think India has a lot of strengths. You can do you can do a lot of low-cost genomics. You can do a lot of very interesting, biomarker discovery. And you can actually create new diagnostics, new molecules. There's so much out there. But we don't have the mindset to do that, because we've always wanted someone else to do it first. And like you heard, is this approved in your US? Is this approved anywhere else outside India? And if it's not, people feel it's not worth it. That is the mindset we have to get out of.
So is the startup generation, the unicorns that we're seeing,
startups are very exciting. I think there are a lot of innovative startups.
Mindsets changing there?
Yes, it's changing, but my biggest fear is scale up.
Yes.
So there's a lot of good ideas. But as I think Ramesh Mashelkar made a very good statement this morning, he said, it's not about how big the budget is. It's about how big the idea is. Can you back that idea? That is really what we need to do. We don't back big ideas. And there are so many examples I can give you in India where it was a big idea, it was translated, but we never backed it.
So any quick hits in terms of improving the ecosystem? I mean, I know there's no instant karma, but it's by the time we get our academic institutions up and running, and many, many more than the few that we have, the institutes of excellence and so on, the venture funding, the mindset.
I think we're coming to that point because it is going to be a survival mode at some stage. Unless you innovate, you perish. So I think that is also going to happen to us in the near future.
Yeah, we always do well when we are
And, as the big tragedy in India is you talked about quarter to quarter. And I think the big problem is when you're investing in R&D, the quarter to quarter performance is not a way of judging how well the business is doing. But unfortunately,
no matter how much you explain to the analysts.
So I think you should look at what kind of innovation and research is being invested in. But I don't think anyone has the patience or the understanding to do that.
But maybe we're getting there.
I'm not sure.
So what about, the other thing is about managing global workforces. I think the original model of India going out was basically sending out hordes of people We used to joke in the boardroom of a large IT company that everyone not born south of the Vindhyas raise your hands, and very few hands would go up. From there, things have changed a fair amount, but you have a global workforce, as you can see. So what are the challenges? I mean, I don't think the 70-hour week and the 90-hour week works in Europe.
No, I think we have to be very objective about productivity. I think that's what you really need to focus on.
Culture?
And culture, of course. Everything is to do with that. We have a very large operation in Malaysia, for instance, and we have a large workforce in Malaysia. Of course, we have most of our big operations in India. But I think when I look at the way it works around the world, I think it is about building a strong sense of productivity-based culture in every one of these places. Operational excellence, everyone has to focus on. And I think the culture that really, really delivers high levels of operational excellence is what works everywhere in the world.
And that's the mantra to managing the global workforce.
Yeah, and I think you have to also use a lot of the local talent to get you to do that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of mistakes that Indian companies make is to send all their leadership to other parts of the world and think they can
start with the CFO and then send out everybody
But I
else.
don't think that works. I think today you need to have a truly federated system where you actually look at local talent, local leadership, but get them to share the tenets and the values and the cultural aspects of what you're doing. So you need to have that anchored kind of value system.
Do you travel? How many days in a year do you travel?
Look, at this stage, I do travel, but not as much as my CEOs do, or my CFOs do, or my other colleagues do. I like to just, travel for the right reasons. My late husband used to say, don't confuse movement for success.
That's wise. So coming back home here to India, and what do we do? This is supposed to be our century. This is more than that. We're all there. What speed bumps do you see along the way? And it's not a political question. I mean, it's really speed bumps, decelerators between now and 2047. I mean, like we always say of the Indian cricket team, that we managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. So, I mean, are there any defeat from the jaws of victory things that we might end up doing that we have to guard against?
First and foremost, you have to have a very strong sense of self-belief. Okay, I think if we believe that roadmap is something which we can walk on, run on, and reach that Viksit Bharat targets, we can do it. It's the mindset, the self-belief, and the fact that we actually have everything that it takes to get there. So it's for us to lose, I feel. I think we can get there. I personally believe when of course I live in Bangalore, which is very optimistic,
Yes.
which is very upbeat, which is so confident of its technological prowess that it's sort of infectious.
Yes, every second person's on track to be a
because
unicorn.
I personally feel, wow, we can be the greatest. And when I meet all these techies and when I meet the kind of companies they are trying to build, I just feel very excited. So I think creating that sense of excitement, that sense of economic purpose, like, Viksit Bharat is economic purpose. We want to be a developed economy by 2047. That's a very powerful economic purpose, and we all have to work towards that, every one of us. Whether it's a startup, whether it's an established company, whether it's the street vendor. I think what the government is trying to do is to see what is it that it can do to make life easier. And it is trying a number of things. For a country as large as ours, everyone's not going to be happy. But if we are, walking in the right direction, and if we've got everything it takes, and I think the most powerful tool that we have, I want to steal your word, Ramesh, affordable excellence. That's the most important thing that we have. Affordable innovation, affordable excellence. We can compete. We can do it at low cost. We can actually deliver low cost, high value. Those are the kind of things we have to do. And I know we've done it in our company, and many companies are doing it.
So India
And the reason why it's compelling, Rama, is because of the fact that we are 1.4 billion people who need access to many of the things we are all trying to do. And they cannot afford it at the price points at which the world offers it to them. So we have to make that difference. We have to innovate. And once you innovate for India, I personally believe you're innovating in a very globally competitive way.
I completely agree with you, and I think India is awash with, and Dr. Mashelkar knows this better than anyone else, is awash with pilot-tested, market-tested models that work. Okay, in fact, that has been also because the multinationals don't want the rest of India, and a lot of Indian businesses also don't want the rest of India. So I think there is a lot of grassroots activity. The only thing is that there is that gap in between at commercialization, between the bright idea and taking it to scale. And I know that you've been an evangelist for a long time, but is that changing?
So, I personally believe there are some sectors where the government has to play a role at the bottom of the pyramid, which will then kind of translate into, industry taking over. But I think the scale is there. India is one country that has and needs the economies of scale to deliver on its stated mission of making it accessible to everyone and everywhere. So I think that is a very powerful model we have. But we have to build it, and as you heard the minister say, it has to be rooted in high quality. I hate it when they say that, oh, this is a product from India, I wonder how good the quality is. We cannot afford that. And we can do it. Lowest cost for the highest quality. That is our opportunity.
And demonstrated too. I guess the only thing before throwing it open to the audience is that we often say that aspirations can't be hallucinations. So somewhere I think the economic purpose is the bridge between the aspiration becoming the hallucination. So,
absolutely.
So I think that's an excellent note to turn it over to the audience. You notice I've not asked you any questions on gender, only because I believe that you are well beyond it. I think
I think it's
not about
very
women in
important.
STEM.
I think it's important to discuss gender. Because the one thing I do find is that a lot of young women entrepreneurs keep coming to me saying it's very difficult to fight for capital. I think it's still there.
Yes.
I had to fight for capital, and young women even today have to fight for capital. That hasn't changed very much. They're much smarter than me, but they still have to fight for capital.
Right. The world changes slowly.
Yeah.
Yes. So can we, I know I've been hogging the conversation so long, so I'm going to open it up. I can see, is anyone traffic controlling, or am I traffic controlling? Okay, I'm traffic controlling. The gentleman.
Myself, Virendra Shah. I'm in healthcare for last 48 years. I'm a pharmacist by profession. My question is that we have got a lot of opportunity, as you rightly said, high quality with low standard. Are you looking any more investment in NDDS, which is a big opportunity for us, for India as well as to export? Novel drug delivery system devices.
Oral drug delivery system.
Oh, oral...
Novel drug delivery system.
Yes, that's a big opportunity. I think the delivery system market is huge, and I think everyone has an opportunity, because you know that even in generics, you have to get to the next level of incremental innovation, which is 505(b)(2)s. And drug delivery systems are now proving to be very attractive. So we should do it.
Ganesh, the mic here, please.
Thanks, Kiran. Yes, as usual, very incisive analysis. I just had a thought that came to my mind. You mentioned self-belief. Unfortunately, with self-belief, we also talk too much, and there's a sense of hubris that comes around immediately. So should we be more subdued? Should we do what the Chinas do, set up chemical parks everywhere, and really scale substantially in some areas? Or do you think the whole bubble of some startups succeeding, everybody wanting to be a unicorn? I just want your personal view on this.
It's a very interesting question you're asking me. Do you do it with stealth, or do you, announce it, right, up front? And I think you're very right. I think we are very excited with our startup economy, but I do think we need to scale up many of these very, very interesting products and services. And for that, I think there is serious investment required. I think we need to see how we can fund it. And I think once you fund it and you do it at scale, we will be very formidable. But just getting excited with a very large startup ecosystem doesn't really, buy it for us.
And foreign capital's okay? Capital is capital?
Of course. I mean, I think you have to attract foreign capital. There's very little capital available in India.
Yes.
So you've got to get foreign VCs coming into India and investing
patient capital.
Yes, absolutely. It's risk capital more than patient capital,
Okay.
because I think they're not willing to bet in a big way with Indian innovation. You do anything crazy out of Silicon Valley, they'll throw a lot of money at it. But if you have that same idea coming out of India, they'll ask, the due diligence they do is so much more. That's the thing you have to, face. And therefore, I think that you really, really need to attract VCs into India. And you need to make it easy for them to invest. There are too many restrictions, by the way. I think many of you know that we have some absurd restrictions on if you have X number of foreign directors, you cannot avail of certain funds. And, if you have VCs, foreign VCs, you cannot avail of certain grants. I think all that has to go. I think we have to have a global mindset. And it doesn't happen in isolation.
The lady there. If anyone from the back rows wants to ask a question, you just have to sort of wave a little because the lights are against us.
Hi, good evening. My name is Anuranganath. I'm a fellow Bangalorean like yourself. A lot of times at the very beginning of when you started, I think people underestimate how important an ecosystem that you have to create amongst you, your friends. So for example, if you have a question about finance, you pick up a phone, call a friend who's now a CFO. But how do you, can you give us some tips for young entrepreneurs? How do we create an ecosystem? So it's not just transactional, but it's give and take, but also with a lot of personal touch.
So I think, first and foremost, it takes time to develop an ecosystem. And as you know, that's why you have these startup hubs in parts of the country where the ecosystem has evolved. Why is Bangalore the hottest place for startups?
In spite of the traffic?
Yeah, in spite of the traffic, is because of the ecosystem, right? And I think a lot of startups spend a lot of time in their cars innovating.
I love how everyone in Bangalore, like everyone in Bombay is talking about how much money they made in the stock market yesterday. Everyone in Bangalore is on track to being a unicorn.
Yeah. So I think Bangalore has the evolving ecosystem, which is, why you have so many startups. I think the government in Bangalore, in Karnataka, is very supportive of startups. And it's serious money. It's not like just rhetoric. It's not just making statements. They do invest. And we also have invested in supporting those startups with good technology. So the way the government has also pumped in a lot of money into creating AI centers of excellence, genomic centers of excellence, it's all happening, and that's all now paying off. So I think, to answer your question, I think the ecosystem is very important. You need to network. I think you need to really make sure that you have investors, you have, other startups with whom you can collaborate. You need to reach out to various government schemes that you can tap into. And of course, you need to be parts of industry bodies, because that also helps you in a big way.
And also what you said, not transactional. You have to start looking to build
it shouldn't be
relationships.
transactional.
Which I believe, I'm told that you have actually the best network of relationships around the world in your field of work, so I hear. There was,
so can I ask a question?
yeah, whoever's got the mic can ask the question.
Sure. So I'm here on the right side.
Yeah, she's here, Kiran.
Hi.
Okay, okay.
Hi, yeah, I'm a scientist by profession. And, your answer to the previous speaker's question sort of dovetails into what I wanted to ask. Last year, there were these policies, the BioE3 policy and the BioRed policy that came out. So how do you think, as an academic institution, is, lacking or is missing in certain areas? So I'd like to pick your brain on that.
So I think, very often government's policies have very good intentions. But I think they haven't quite mapped out which are the priorities that they need to focus on. That's what we need to do better. Because even when they came out with PLI schemes for the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, I said, why don't you focus on biomanufacturing? Because that's where we need the critical mass. Why don't you focus on cell and gene therapy? Because that's the startup ecosystem that can actually scale up very fast. But it was completely, sort of skewed towards the usual, the synthetic chemistry-based generics, which was more of the same. I really think we missed an opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good.
And now they've, of course, come up with the BioE3 policy, and I'm hoping that that will make a bit of a difference. Yeah, I think the last question.
Yes, we've got
2
less,
seconds.
2 seconds. One, so if you don't ask it quickly, we're done. It says
No,
time's
no,
up.
but they can
So I'll
ask.
take the last question.
My name is Uma. Just as we are just watching and observing what's happening to all the research funds getting choked in the US, do you think there is an opportunity for India to think out of the box and negotiate with the US government to create a research corridor in India, attracting some of the top talent from the US to work alongside the academic institutions and others in India to be able to create something which can be a breakthrough discoveries over the next 5 to 10 years with the combined talent of digital specialists and scientific community together?
I personally believe that we have to do it on our own. We have to demonstrate our capabilities, our scientific capabilities. I think there are many tech corridors that have been created. But to tell you the truth, the tech corridors never work unless you have an, equal partnership. So unless you start becoming stronger in your science and in your research, I don't think you can build strong tech corridors. And as for what's happening in the US, I really think it's temporary. I think US understands that without the NIH, without research grants, I think they will be badly impacted.
And that's a great note to end on. So thank you very much, Kiran. As always, authentic and insightful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I request Ravi Pandit, the Treasurer of PIC, to come up onto the stage to offer our two guests here a token of appreciation. To Dr. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw. And to Rama Bijapurkar. Thank you so much. What an extraordinary start to the Asia Economic Dialogue 2025. So we've navigated complex landscapes, challenged conventional economic wisdom, and exchanged ideas that are going to shape the future of economic resilience and resurgence. I think Shri Piyush Goyal reminded us of India's commitment to leave no one behind while positioning the nation as a global leader through speed and scale. And Kiran's inspiring vision for innovating in India is huge. I think she's also given Dr. Malshalkar an extra responsibility now with all those PhDs surrounding the PIC campus. Hopefully, we can get some fast followers of molecules going. Now, we're coming down towards the end of the first day. It's not quite the end because we always have networking and food. And ready for tomorrow. Remember, the conversations we start here have the power to shape the future. So network away and let's see what policy changes come. Thank you very much. See you all tomorrow morning.